Hello there, people of the internet. I'm Stuart from Marshall Music, and today we have a very special guest, Chris Thundervolt, from a whole bunch of bands, which he's going to tell us all about. Chris has actually been a wonderful customer of Marshall Music for many years. I think I've known him for about 12 or 13 years. We've become really good mates, and I've watched his career blooming into all sorts of wonderful, fantastic things. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much, Stuart.
Really nice to have you here.
Lekker, it's good to be here. How are you doing? Are you well?
Yeah, very good.
Cool.
Very
cool.
good.
That's cool.
Maybe tell us a little bit about, let's go back 12 or 13 years to where I first met you.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your, and maybe before, tell us a brief history of your sort of musical career.
Well, I grew up in a pretty musical family. My older brothers played with Jackhammer, and the one brother played for Not My Dog as well. They had a studio, so there was always a lot of music growing up. And eventually, I picked up a guitar. Started with heavy metal, as every angry kid does, and we moved into more math metal and kind of prog stuff. And we came here with Roots in I think it was 2005, 6. Yeah. And then kind of my life with touring and the road started. You know, Roots was a kind of band you couldn't get it on the radio, so you kind of had to tour, and I learned a lot with that band, kind of musically trying to push the boundaries and kind of and touring and studio. So I did that for a couple of years, and then decided I have to go study music, study jazz, figure out what's going on, and kind of unlock the doors in my mind that I want to go through, but I don't have the keys yet. And went through that, studied my degree, and just kept playing. Met the Black Hat Bones through that. Started playing bass. Every guitar player needs a bass player at the end of the day. I actually studied guitar, so I knew the inside secrets.
Yeah.
And it was, I started with a hip hop band into a little jazz fusion band with guys like Greg Georgiadis and Ilamar from Bright Lights Big City and stuff like that. Moved on to start playing for the Black Hat Bones. That was in 2010 about. So I've been with them since then, and we've been touring and gigging and been all around the country, all kinds of festivals, all kinds of gigs. And I've also been sticking to heavy metal throughout the years. I mean, I couldn't shake it off. I've made a bizarre band called Boargazm, which is intergalactic space pig metal. It's all satire and comedy, and we try to be clever with heavy metal and with music, but it just went over the audience's head. And sometimes it's a fine line that you got to walk, that you got to balance between pleasing yourself as an artist and pleasing the audience. And then we kind of started Boargazm as a joke, just to make some fun riffs and stuff, and it actually ended up doing a lot better. We did a lot of tours and stuff like that. And then recently I joined up with Vulvodynia, which is also some more death metal. I'm playing bass for them as well, which they also tour a lot, mostly in Europe. And
doing very well in Europe.
And it's
we're
been
really
great.
Proud of you.
Thank you
For representing
it's cool.
South Africa overseas in the big metal scene.
It's cool. It's one step at a time. It's always been, every opportunity I get, I try and grab it, and I try and do the gig as good as I can. Try and get it focused, do my parts well, and I've played with a lot of different artists, done a lot of tribute shows, played with guys like Albert Frost, like Psychoustic. So it's been a long journey, step by step. I've taken every gig I can and every opportunity I can, and it's all worked out in the end. I've ended up playing with guys like Albert Frost, and I've been working with the Blood Brothers now for the last 2 years, and ended up being the musical director as well, which is a collab. You get to work. We've worked with Franco this year, and Laudu from A King, and a couple of guys, Hannu from Dinara, and done the Led Zeppelin tribute, and it just keeps rolling on. And there's some more cool stuff on its way, and just never stopping, man.
Brilliant. So all these wonderfully diverse projects that you're in, tell us a little bit more about your influences growing up musically. Obviously the metal thing, but I mean, obviously your tastes are way more varied than that.
Yes, I listened to quite a wide spectrum of music. Everything from John Coltrane, Miles Davis, jazz kind of stuff to extreme death metal, tech death metal, and reggae and blues and everything, and rock and roll and everything in between. Growing up, there was a lot of Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, like 70s jam kind of music going on. And as the 80s, I guess, kind of progressed into the early 90s, a lot more Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Pantera, and Metallica came into the scene. So that side has really kind of rubbed off from, I'd say, my parents and my older brothers. And I mean, as influences go, my oldest brother also studied jazz, and I think the jazz flavor kind of rubbed off from there. And I mean, being a musician, you also got to keep an eye out what's happening around you. Electronic music is a big part of what's going on. I've seen some great stuff. I've seen John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin play improvisational bass lines over like electro trance kind of stuff, and it just shows you got to be open, got to keep moving. And I mean, as I studied jazz, that also influenced me. I learned about the different guys, and as I got into the rock scene and did a lot of the tributes as well. I mean, I didn't listen to as much Elvis as I did before doing a tribute, or Janis Joplin, or Led Zeppelin. No, I've always listened to Led Zeppelin.
Good.
But it's my family's always been very rock oriented, and definitely a lot of jazz as well. And playing.
You're very lucky.
It could have been like classical music, or I don't know, like serious bad polka techno, you know. But it's been good. It's there's been a lot of stuff that's also happened. Playing with different people influenced me as well. Playing with Andre Kriel, for instance, got me into a lot of country. Playing with a guy like Jaco Mans got me into a lot of reggae. He played for Tidal Waves. And getting into playing with Albert Frost, he got me into a lot of stuff like the Dead Weather and like that modern contemporary off-sounding blues kind of stuff. So I mean, you just got to keep your ears open and see what appeals to you. I mean, our musical voice is a combination of everything that we listen to and like. We'll never just copy one artist. We'll take a little bit from each artist, and what that puts together is what our sound is at the end of the day. 100%. And that's why I guess your sound gets defined over time, because you get exposed to a lot more tastes and stuff that appeal to you through a longer span of time, and then you kind of create something that hasn't been heard, or a unique identity to some degree.
All right, Chris, let's talk about some gear. Let's talk about the stuff you use.
I love gear.
We know. He spends a lot of his time and money in the shop.
You guys have given me some great gear through the years as well. Gear is an always evolving thing. I started off playing bass. I didn't even have a bass when I started playing bass. I borrowed a bass from a friend of mine. I don't even remember what it was. It was a bassist of my other band. Yeah, that was what it was, like a cheap Squier. And I mean, the first bass I bought myself was a jazz bass. I mean, it's either a P bass or a jazz bass. Those are the classics. Played it for years. Eventually got that Candy Apple Red P bass that I bought here. Then put in those Aguilar pickups into that thing, and that was the most killer P bass. It's still to this day the most killer P bass. It records fantastic. And then
she's not in very good condition though.
No, I mean, I throw my basses around, but that's a good a checkpoint for me. Can the gear withstand me? In a sense, because it needs to be roadworthy, it needs to be gig worthy, it should not go out of tune, it should be able to handle different weather conditions, traveling in cars where it gets hot and cold during the day and night. And I mean, the stuff I've always gotten here has always been great. I mean, eventually I moved on to the Thunderbird, which has become kind of an iconic bass for me as well. It's one of the most incredible instruments I've ever played. I remember coming in here, you guys had two, and I played the one and was like, it's okay, and I played the other one and it just resonated straight with me. And eventually put on the onboard preamp from Aguilar as well. And then it just exploded, got so much life. And I've also, I mean, I use a lot of pedals as well through the years.
Tell us a bit about amps and pedals.
Cool. I started with no amp. I didn't have a bass, didn't have an amp, but I think the first bass amp I bought here was an Ashdown back in the day. It was a 2x 2x10 bass amp, Ashdown, and it was great, fantastic. I loved the overdrive on it. That was one thing that always stuck with me. Listening to bands like Rage Against the Machine and Pantera and even Led Zeppelin, they had a lot of overdrive on their bass. So that stuck with me, and I think the second bass amp I actually bought from you guys was the Aguilar SC500, which was the older ones. And
single channel.
Yeah. I remember going through all the amps here in the shop, and they all sounded cool. It was the Mark bass amp and the Eden bass amps and stuff, and they just arrived in the shop. They were like, no one knew anything about it. And once I plugged it in there with the P-bass, the mid-range was absolutely incredible. So I played Aguilar for a while because their stuff also has a lot of drive and stuff on it, which is fantastic, which eventually got me playing with the Sansamp pedals, and then that eventually moved on to the Darkglass pedals and stuff, which I'm playing Darkglass amplifiers as well now.
Yes,
and it's because the drives on the amp, it sounds amazing. I just love playing distortion bass. Some people frown upon it, but in a mix it kind of compresses your bass and it just sits really nice in a live mix. It's fantastic.
You've got a Darkglass endorsement.
Yes, when I got the Vulvodynia gig, I mailed Darkglass, and a friend of mine actually worked on a video for them, and he got in touch with the boss and we started talking, and then they kind of hooked me up with a really sweet deal. And playing their pedals is really fantastic because they have a really modern sound and approach, and their development is insane at the moment. I mean, I play the B7K, which is fantastic for metal. It's got this crystal clear drive on top and then an incredible bottom end. And they've got the Alpha Omega, which is fantastic for stuff like the Black Cat Bones or the Led Zeppelin tribute, which has got a bit of a more mid-range focus.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got the fuzz pedal as well, and it's just, their stuff is really, really nice, and it growls, and it makes my bass sound like I'm stroking a lion.
So we are working on getting Darkglass electronics here at Marshall, so yeah, stay tuned for that. We will get them. And then and also tell us about this new bass that you got. So
the same guy who does Darkglass hooked me up with the Dingwall deal, and Dingwall have kind of been, when I started playing metal and stuff, the guys who play Dingwall and the sound that they get from the Dingwall basses has kind of been a thing that stuck with me. If you hear the modern metal like Periphery or Meshuggah, I mean, Meshuggah don't use the Dingwalls, but it's a kind of sound that I've developed with the modern metal that I really like. And I thought, if I'm gonna just try and get something from someone, a kind of hookup deal or something, let me send them an EPK. I've been doing a lot of stuff, and it was coincidentally the same guy. He hooked me up with the Nolly Get Good signature, which is a 5-string fan fret Dingwall with the Darkglass preamp on the bass, and it's absolutely incredible. It's the first serious 5-string I've ever played. It's the fan fret system as well, which is great because, I mean, as your hand moves that way, the frets bend that way, and the frets bend up that way. It's very ergonomic, and it plays fantastic. The setup out of the box was incredible, and it's a great instrument. I'll try and get some connections and get them here, but I like that at the moment. That and the Thunderbird. My Dingwall and my Thunderbird are my two favorite basses.
Okay. And then just quickly a few tips for young bass players trying to get a good sound. I mean,
don't be afraid of overdrive bass. Everyone will always tell you it sounds horrible and it's noisy, and it's something that you'll get used to. You have to play differently when you use overdrive. Your attack and decay differs, your dynamics slightly changes. You start playing really hard because the response you get out of your distortions are really it affects a lot. So I'd say learn to play with drive. Don't be afraid to use pedals. I use whammy pedals, wah pedals and stuff. Put in the time, hours, practice, figure out who you like, learn their songs, because I mean there are only a handful of progressions in popular music. It's the guys, what they do over those progressions that create those sounds. The way Led Zeppelin plays over a 145, the way John Paul Jones plays over a 145.
Totally unique. You don't even think it's blues.
Exactly. And I mean, checking that out will kind of show you how you should be thinking about playing over those progressions. So Check out the players, don't be afraid of pedals, and practice. Put in the hours, sit
Just
in front
like
of the
guitarists do, you know?
Yeah, and I don't know, do guitarists practice? I thought they're just born with it, man. No, it's and yeah, also listen to hip hop music. You know, there's a thing with the 16th swing, which is a good thing with a groove on a bass, and it's such a subtle key. But I learned that a little late. I used to play. It's a thing they call like playing very white, very strict, you know. And I think that black feel is that hip hop 16th kind of groove. But that you get from learning stuff that you like, figuring out the players and transcribing the music.
Okay, yeah. Then also in a similar vein, what is your advice to young musos who want to
start gigging?
They've put in their hours, they're fairly competent on the bass. What's the next step?
You have to go to gigs. You have to socialize, you have to go to the parties, you have to meet people, go to jam sessions, go to open mics, invite people over, have jams, play with other bass players, play with other guitar players, play with drummers, get jamming. Take every opportunity you can. If someone asks you to do an ABBA tribute, and like you don't have gigs, why are you saying no? Take every opportunity, because you're playing that ABBA tribute, and one of the other musos in that band's like, hey, this is pretty cool. They end up doing another show, or they have one of their own bands, and they're like, hey, maybe I'm going to use this guy. Yeah. And it's literally just take every opportunity.
Well, and I think you're a perfect example of that. I
try
networking and working hard and
just gotta keep taking everything that comes your way. I mean, and also treat it with respect. If you get an opportunity to play, learn the songs. Don't get to band practice and be like, you gotta do your homework. You gotta
band practice isn't for learning the songs; it's for perfecting them.
Yeah, it's making sure everyone's parts that they've learned are on the same page, so that when you're performing them, there are zero mistakes at the end. There are going to be mistakes. We're only human, but just take every opportunity you can. Be a nice guy, and just go out there and socialize. It's an important part of the thing. I mean, you can practice 26 hours a day. If you're not a nice guy, you're not going to get the gig. It's the truth.
100%. We can both vouch for that.
Yeah, I'm not a nice guy.
Neither am I.
Yeah. Why are we getting gigs?
Okay, Chris, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thank you for taking up your valuable time to chat with me.
Thank you for having me. It's it's always good coming to the store. I like all these instruments and toys. I don't want to go home anymore.
Awesome. Before you go, do you want to just maybe give the viewers some links or contact details, or where they can find all your wonderful bands?
People can check it out on Facebook. They can check out my personal page. I've got a thing called Danger Thundervolt. It's always kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. But the Black Hat Bones are on there. Vulvodynia Slam is on there, and Boargazm's on there. That's the main projects I'm involved with. There's also the Led Zeppelin tribute. That's all on Instagram as well. Go check out Facebook and Instagram. That's where we're mostly active. And then we have some YouTube stuff happening, mostly on the Black Hat Bones and Boargazm and Vulvodynia. Not myself as much yet. I'd like to do my online stuff. It's very important to do some online stuff, like YouTube-wise, playing videos and stuff. But I don't get the time. I have to gig. I have to learn the songs. One day I'll probably do a couple of videos of all the songs that I've learned for all the gigs that I've done.
Sure.
And then I'll have like 1 million videos. And if you have 1 view per video, you have 1 million views.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, thank you, Chris. If you guys want to see all the links to Chris's bands, click on the links below. Cheers, that's all for now. Bye, guys.
Sick.